Okay, into the core study, Riker and Haslam, they're very keen to point out that this isn't a replication of the Stanford prison experiment, that would not be possible because of ethical issues. What they wanted to do was create a new situation, not necessarily a prison, but an institution. It just came out as a prison, but more about an institution which would create inequalities that were real to the participants, that seemed very real for them. This would then provide a setting in which the issues raised by Stanford Prison could be addressed, but it really was not their intention to redo Zimbardo's work. The overall aims of their study was to provide a comprehensive and systematic data pertaining to the unfolding interactions between groups or unequal power and privilege. It was to analyse, so the second aim was to analyse the conditions under which people define themselves in terms of their ascribed group membership and act in terms of the identity of that group. They wanted to see if they'd accept or else challenge intergroup inequalities. Specifically, they wanted to see if dominant group members will identify with their group from the start and impose their power, as Zimbardo found. They also want to look at the subordinate group members. Will they only identify collectively and challenge intergroup inequalities when they see relations between groups are impermeable or insecure? And they're the issues that came up in the background research poll. The third aim was to examine the relations between social, organisational and clinical factors in group behaviour. And the final aim was to develop protocols that provide a practical and ethical framework for examining social psychology issues in a large-scale study. Now, the method that was used, the authors described it as an experimental case study. They do this because they're looking at a small group of people intensely, but they're also manipulating the situation and measuring the outcome of that situation. Now, the study was conducted in collaboration with the BBC. The BBC were going to make 4 one-hour documentaries to televise the piece of research. Riker and Haslam are keen to point out that the BBC didn't have a Big Brother effect over this, that it is very much a psychology experiment and not a BBC Big Brother type documentary. The study aimed to create a hierarchical society in a film studio, which was mocked out to look like a prison, and this was conducted in London. The participants would live for a maximum of 10 days in this institution. It was built with 3-person lockable cells to house the prisoners. These and showers for the prisoners led off a central avenue, and the guards' quarters were separated by a lockable steel mesh fence, and the guards' dormitory and mesh area was substantially nicer than the prison one. The participants are recruited through self-selection. They responded to adverts for male volunteers in the national press, and there was leaflets in the environment as well. Now, males only were studied so that the comparison with the Stanford prison could be made, and also to avoid the ethical concerns about mixing men and women in a prison. Now, the participants were selected from a pool of 332 applicants. 27 men were selected by a 3-phase screening process. A final sample of 15 was chosen to ensure diversity of age, social class and ethnic background. Now, the screening process is something you do need to know about. The prospective participants completed a huge amount of psychometric testing that measured social variables such as authority, social dominance and modern racism. It looked at clinical variables like depression, anxiety, social isolation, paranoia, aggression, demotivation, self-esteem, self-harm and drug dependence. The participants also underwent a full weekend assessment by independent clinical psychologists, and the medical and character references were obtained and police checks were also conducted before the participants were allowed to take part in the experiment. The selected participants were all people who were well-adjusted and pro-social. And this is all done for ethical reasons, to ensure that the sample is generalizability across a large group, but also to make sure that they're likely to be able to handle the stress. Judging by Zimbardo, there could be stress involved. The authors claim that the final 15 were randomly divided into 2 groups of 5 guards and 10 prisoners. However, this was done only after they'd been put into match groups of 3, as closely matched as possible on personality variables, basically potentially implicated in the tyranny, modern racism, authority group, and the social dominance. From each group of 3, a guard and 2 prisoners were randomly allocated. This process acted as a control to ensure that the personality types were spread out across the guards and the prisoners. As a further control, this process was carried out blind, with the experimenters not knowing who was being allocated to which role. Because of the planned interventions in this study, it began with 9 prisoners and 5 guards, with the 10th prisoner introduced at a later stage as one of the independent variables. Now, the procedure of the study over an 8-day period, the study examined the behaviour of the 15 men who were placed in the social hierarchy of guards and prisoners within a purpose-built environment. Their behaviour was video and audio recorded over the entire period, and this was complemented by the daily psychometric and physiological tests for stress. The video data was edited by the BBC into the documentaries. Now, with full 8 days of observation, intervention and daily psychometric measures, there is so much more that happened within this setting. So the setup of the guards. In the setting up of the guards, they were invited to a hotel the night before the study was to begin. Here they were briefed as follows. They had informed that they would have the role of the guards in the study. They were shown the prison timetable, for example, the cleaning rota, work duties, prisoner roll, calls, exercise and recreation time. Told they would be responsible for making sure the institution ran smoothly and ensuring the prisoners performed all their tasks. Asked to draw up a series of prison rules under headings given by the authors and to draw up punishment should the prisoners violate these rules. They were given no guidance on how to do this, except that they must respect a set of ethically determined rights for prisoners. Now, as in the Stanford Prison Study, the guards were informed that no physical violence would be tolerated, but beyond this it was stressed that they could act as they pleased. Now, day 1 for the guards. In the morning, the guards were taken by a blacked-out van to the institution. The blacked-out van was used so that the inside of the prison would be the guards for total sensory experience, so it would really feel like they're walking into an institution, a hierarchical institution, rather than a TV recording studio. They were briefed about the layout of the prison and resources available to help them enforce the authority, including all the keys to the door, the observation cells, the full cell surveillance system installed, where the snacks were kept, cigarettes were kept in case they wanted to reward and punish the prisoners. And the guards were given their uniforms, which were well made, and they were given a briefing and prepared for the practices that they were just about to do. Now, the setup for the prisoners was slightly different. They arrived on day 1, also in blacked-out vans. They had their heads shaved on arrival and were given a uniform consisting of a t-shirt printed with a 3-digit number, loose trousers and flimsy sandals. The prisoners were given no information other than their prison rules and a list of prisoner rights, and these were posted in their cells. The only other information they received was a short loudspeaker announcement by the researcher, which told them that no violence was permissible, and that since the allocation process might not have been reliable, there was a chance for permeability into a possible promotion on day 3 into a guard situation. So if you showed guard-like qualities, you could potentially be a guard on day 3.